A very good morning to everyone, hoping for your wellness and safety. I, Jyoti Kukre, on behalf of Medicaps University, welcomes you all for today's webinar on Understanding National Education Policy with special reference to higher education sector. As National Education Policy outlines the vision of India's new education system, so we all should be aware of it. That is why we at Medicaps like you to know that we are going to conduct series of webinars on national education policy. This is a second in series with AICT. All India Council for Technical Education is statutory body for planning, formulation and maintenance of norms and standards, quality assurance through school accreditation, funding in priority areas, monitoring and evaluation certificate and awards, and ensuring coordinated and integrated development and management of technical education in the country. National Education Policy 2020 envisions an India-centric education system that contributes directly to transforming our nation sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. Medicaps has always stood for the quality and disciplined academic deliberations. This event also marks the vision of Medicaps, and we hope to pursue this aim further for a strong nation building. This session today's highlight the scenario of education in context to new normals. Medicaps University is glad to organize this webinar on national education policy, and we are thankful that the event is graced by intellectuals from different regions. Moving further, let me invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sunil K. Somani, sir, to give a glimpse of Medicaps University and for a welcome note. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. Namaste to all. Uh, Welcome to this webinar on the uh, national education policy and particularly in relationship with the higher education. Series of webinars and series of discussions already we have attended and we have conducted in our university, not only internally but through different experts which are there from all around the country. Uh, that includes the regulatory body people, also the UGC people, and the experts who are there in this field. Today, it's our opportunity to welcome Dr. Archana Mantri, who is Vice Chancellor of Chitkara University. We are happy to have you here in this particular session, madam. Welcome to you. All the attendees, they uh, probably know Medicaps University since long. They are aware of Medicaps University. All of you might be knowing that Medicaps is the brand name as far as this Central India is concerned. Uh, in different ranking agencies also, Medicaps is number one as far as Central India is concerned. We are into the these engineering education and management education since long. It was year 2000 when the group has started two institute in the same campus devoted to the engineering side and management side MCA courses as well. And it was in 2015 we decided to form the university, go for the privatization of the university by the state government, and we took the approval from UGC consequently. Uh, After becoming the university, apart from engineering, management, and computer application courses, we included agriculture, pharmacy, forensic science, uh, commerce, arts, and plain science with the specialization in computer science. Such kind of courses we have included afterwards. Right now, the strength of the university is more than 7,000 students in the same campus. We have further a vision to start a new campus, which is very near to our own existing campus, and it depends upon the new courses, new programs which we will be including in the new campus. Due to this COVID, in a number of problems were uh, observed by all of us. But one advantage which we have taken is the friendship with the technology. All of us are sitting right now in your own cabin or at your home, but able to discuss about the national education policy, which has been formulated by the government of India and put forwarded. There are number of features which Dr. Mantri will be taking and will discuss on those points as well. But believe me, after few years, when the policy will be implemented and be fully functional, every one of us will see tremendous change in the existing scenario of education. Uh, on different platforms, I have already discussed that probably we won't be able to use the infrastructure, or we won't be needing the infrastructure which is right now available, or the people are going for aiding the infrastructure in different campuses. But uh, it will be a very open kind of education, and the mm, student will be free to opt for his own education, like we do in our own party, in the buffet party, where we can pick up anything which we wish to have in our plate. In the similar fashion, the students will be able to do uh, uh, take up the choices of their own and do the courses, do the degree in that particular phase of process. I would like to thank the committee which is organizing this program. Um Again, Dr. Tripathi has taken the lead role in organizing such kind of programs, maybe for school level education or for higher education, and more number of such webinars will be there for actual implementation. Just for the information to the guests who are attached with this particular webinar, I would like to tell you that Medicaps has taken keen interest in formulating the schemes right from very inception, that is in 2016 itself. We are giving more emphasis on the industrial relationship, where the students are required to pass their project through the industry in the final year, as far as engineering education is concerned. Of course, in agriculture, it was already been there since fifth Dean committee has given those requirements. So whatever are the regulatory bodies are there, we are following those norms, and we are one of the university which is having all its courses approved by AICTE as far as professional courses are concerned. And I believe Chitkara is also one of the university which is getting this AICTE approval regularly. So I thank and welcome on behalf of Medicaps University, Dr. Archana Mantri to this forum. Thank you, one and all. Over to you, Jyoti.
Thank you, sir. I want to request all the audience present here that at any point of time during presentation, if you have queries, please feel free to write in chat box. Now let me call upon Ms. Megha Patidar for introducing our today's speaker, Dr. Archana Mantri. Megha, over to you.
Thank you, Jyoti ma'am. Our speaker of the day, Dr. Archana Mantri, is Vice Chancellor at Chitkara University, Punjab. She is a thought leader, enabler, and spearheads several initiatives related to research, innovation, and entrepreneurship at the university. She has PhD in Electronics and Communication Engineering and has 30 years of experience in academia and other research organizations. She has worked extensively in curriculum development and has also copyrighted several blended learning models to support modern pedagogical practices. She works extensively for enabling and rearing technologies and repositories for online blended and flipped classrooms. Incidentally, she is also the pioneer in immersive and interactive technologies related research in India. Recently, Dr. Mantri has been on the 9-member committee constituted by MOE to draft implementation documentation for national education policy. Dr. Mantri works simultaneously on evolving adaptive assessments to support newer pedagogical practices. She is a senior IEEE member and is on the advisory board of Indo-Universal Collaboration of Engineering Education, IUCEE, along with 35 other international experts from USA, Australia, and Europe. She has conducted numerous workshops at national and international platforms for educators training. She has traveled extensively from USA to Europe, from Canada to Asian countries, and brings truly global perspective to education. It is our immense pleasure to have such a vibrant personality amongst us. It is definitely going to be an inspiring session for all of us. Over to you now, Archana ma'am. Please carry on.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Shilpa. And thank you, Sunilji, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity and talking about the national education policy, which in itself is a research document. And as much as you read it, you find new features and newer ways of implementing it. Every time I prepare for a new webinar, every time I learn a lot. And also get inspired by this very good document, very thoughtful document, which our policymakers have made. I will start my thoughts on the national education policy with special reference to higher education by reading few lines from this document itself. On page 3 of this national education policy, which incidentally is a 66-page document, including the cover page and the last page. From page 3, I'm reading out some lines. This National Education Policy 2020 is the first education policy of 21st century and aims to address the many growing developmental imperatives of our country. This policy proposes the revision and revamping of all aspects of education structure, including its regulation and governance, to create a new system that is aligned with the aspirational goals of 21st century education, including a Sustainable Development Goal 4, while building upon India's traditions and value systems. This paragraph itself is very intriguing and inspirational and gives you the whole thought behind compiling this 66-page document. Every line of this document is an inspiration, carries in itself a lot of meaning, and also lot of ways and indicative ways of implementing the national education policy. Jyoti ji, I hope my screen is visible and the presentation is shared. Can you please confirm?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
I'll move on to tell you that
Um,
yeah,
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, your slides are not changing. It's just the title one.
yeah, I know, I know. I'm going
Okay.
to change it.
Thank
That's
you.
fine.
Okay.
Just adding on to the compilation of this particular document, this particular National Education Policy 2020 is in 4 parts. Part 1 is about school education, part 2 is about higher education, and part 3 is about other key areas of focus, and part 4 is making it happen. And as Jyotiji just now told, and Megha in fact introduced, while introducing, she told that I was also fortunate and humbled enough to be a part of the 9-member committee constituted by ICT and Ministry of Education on giving uh, guidelines and recommendations on how this national education policy will be implemented. Although the Apex committee had very senior members and other prominent educationalists, but during this process itself, I had a chance to go through this document again and again, and also uh, give a lot of thought and discuss with the prominent people, with the learned people across the education system on what are the thoughts of implementing this national education policy. So, having told that, that this particular policy is is in 4 sections, I will just tell you what are the focus areas in particular reference to higher education system. These are the 9 focus areas, and in fact, they also coincide and have been taken from the 180-page document that our committee prepared, the 9-member committee on giving recommendations for implementation, prepared and is divided into these 9 chapters. In some way or the other, these 9 chapters coincide with the sections of the national education policy. However, in some other ways, it does not also. So the 9 focus areas on the implementation and even in the guidelines for implementation are these: multidisciplinary and holistic education, equity and inclusion, research, innovation and rankings, global outreach of higher education, motivated, energized, and capable faculty. By the way, let me just tell you that this whole policy is revolving around the single pillar, or I would say the most prominent pillar of the education system, which is the faculty. Of course, the other pillars, the students, the governance, the industry, and the globalization are no less important, but everything which needs to be carried forward depends upon this fifth point, which is motivated, energized, and capable faculty. And while doing the deliberations on implementation of national education policy, we also discussed at length how we can motivate, energize, and make our faculty capable by training and retraining the faculty members, because they are the movers and shakers of this whole education system. The sixth focus area is integrated higher education system, governance and regulation, promotion of Indian languages, arts and culture, technology, use and integration. Before I move on, I would just like to take some more historical aspect of this education policy. By the way, my presentation has only 12 slides based on these 9 focus areas. And I'm going to spend exactly half an hour deliberating on these 9 focus areas, leaving rest of the 15 minutes for any questions and answers, any questions that you may have. So moving into the historical aspect of this education policy, the previous implementation of previous policies on education had focused largely on issues of access and equity. The unfinished agenda of the National Education Policy in 1986, modified in 1992, is appropriately dealt within this policy. on a major development since the last policy of 1986 or 1992, because that was unfinished agenda of 1986, which was taken up in 1992, has been the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, which laid down legal underpinning of achieving universal elementary education. So, in a nutshell, the National Education Policy 2020 is talking about free and compulsory education to all, especially elementary education. And that's a big agenda, looking at the beneficiaries who are going to be, the students who are going to be the beneficiaries of this particular agenda. 3 points that I want to highlight in this whole education policy, if you and that is taken from page number 5, wherein they are the policymakers are talking about the principles of National Education Policy 2020. Just 3 points. And these you have to keep in mind when we are going to discuss the 9 focus areas. The first one is no hard separation between arts, sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams, in order to eliminate harmful hierarchies among and silos between different areas of learning. And that's very important. This whole education system that we practice today and that we have been product of has been working in silos and compartments, as we call them. I am an engineering graduate. You are an arts graduate. He is a sciences graduate. She is coming from humanities background, and so on and so forth. But this education policy says that there is going to be no hard separation between arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams, which means there is a complete paradigm shift in the way the education system has to be perceived and thought. The thinking has to change before understanding and implementing national education policy. The second point out of the 10 that they have highlighted is multidisciplinary and holistic education across the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports for a multidisciplinary world in order to ensure the unity and integrity of all knowledge. That's amazing, in fact. That's a very thoughtful fact that they have put in. A holistic education is something that again needs to be thought bottom up and top down. So there has to be the boundaries of the education system, of the disciplinary education system, has to be blurred before we move on to discuss the national education policy. And third, and the last point that I want to highlight from this 10 principles that national education policy highlights on page number 5 is a light but tight regulatory framework to ensure integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency of the education system through audit and public disclosure, while encouraging innovation and out-of-the-box ideas through autonomy, good governance, and empowerment. The light but tight regulatory framework is something that the policymakers and the regulators are imposing on themselves. So they are wanting to make the regulatory framework light but tight. And at all levels of implementation of national education policy and reforming the education system, they are wanting us to depend on public disclosures, which means we are answerable to ourselves as providers of education. When there are public disclosures of the governance, of the autonomy, and of the empowerment, and of the systems and processes that we follow, there comes in integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency. So there is what the policymakers are trying to say is that there is nobody who is required to regulate you but yourself and the benchmarks that the education systems and providers would set for themselves. So with these three focus areas, which is no hard separation between art, sciences, curricular, extracurricular activities, multidisciplinary and holistic education across sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports, and light but tight regulatory framework to ensure integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency, we move on to discuss the 9 focus areas, which are these right now being displayed on your screen. So let's discuss the multidisciplinary education. So evolving a model of holistic and multidisciplinary education, which aims to develop all capacities of human beings, intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, and moral in an integrated way. If you look back, and everything which is there in the national education policy is inspired by our traditional old historic education system, which was followed in India long back historically by our gurus and the Gurukul system. The Gurukul system always insisted in India about the holistic education. Emphasis had always been on making the human being lifelong learner. That required intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, and moral integration in all students who were takers of knowledge. The objectives of multidisciplinary education have been further distributed thus into 5 further objectives. Graduate attributes are to be redefined that reflect holistic education. Second, enabling multidisciplinary education ecosystem. Everything which has been defined here and in the education policy is in the form of a framework, giving us, the education providers, a lot of flexibility to define our own systems with these objectives in mind. Enabling sustainable living through education. That's a very, very sound point that this multidisciplinary education focus area is defining. When we say intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, and emotional moral integration, we are in a way ensuring that we are enabling sustainable living through education. Earlier on, education was imparted for employment. It was never for a sustainable living. Now, it has come up and is one of the focus areas of the first focus area, which is multidisciplinary education. Leveraging digital technologies. Sunil just told us that we have all come closer, although physical boundaries have made us apart and sit apart in any part of the world, but we are coming closer, at least on the screen space, using and leveraging digital technologies. Multiple opportunities for entry, exit, and flexibility. This has been much talked about feature of the national education policy. Has been debated. There have been very many views on whether this is possible or not. The multiple opportunities for entry, exit, and flexibility. If you look at the face of it and the traditional education system that we have been following, the fifth objective seems to be the most difficult one to achieve. Trust me, this is possible. Only thing is the 3 points which I told you earlier from the education policy document itself, those are to be kept in mind, and the framework and objectives which the national education policy and the implementation document, which is going to be soon in your hands after it goes through the apex bodies, it emphasizes that this is a possibility if we are trying to ensure. And if you look deeply in these 5 objectives, you will find they are all related to each other. They are exclusive to each other, but they are related to each other. And one is not possible without the other. So unless we provide multiple opportunities for entry, exit, and flexibility, we will not be able to provide sustainable living. Unless we leverage digital technologies, the other 4 objectives are not possible. unless we redefine the graduate attributes, which is the first objective, to reflect the holistic education, the other four are not. So hence, in a nutshell, multidisciplinary education is trying to enforce intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, and moral integration of the whole education system, which in a nutshell should be redefined in the graduate attributes that we define. UGC has been talking about LOCF, about outcome-based education, and that is all about redefining the graduate attributes to encompass and inculcate multidisciplinary education. Equity and inclusion. When we say ensuring equitable access to quality education to all students, with a special emphasis on SEDGs, and SEDGs stand for socio-economically disadvantaged groups. Remember, if we cannot make the education inclusive, all other aspects and focus areas of the education system are meaningless. You teach who is already taught. You make the learned learn. But what about those people who do not have even access to education? Access to education is as important as access to food and water. So making quality higher education and education opportunities available to all individuals, especially socio-economically disadvantaged groups, must be among the highest priorities that the second focus area of national education policy talks about. Each higher education institution should identify and measure facets of exclusion, access barrier in higher education. So the way this has to be implemented is that every higher education institute will have to identify in their own circles of influence what are those barriers which are making the students not access the higher education which that particular institute is offering. Once identified and measured, the second objective is to include steps to facilitate participation through enhanced opportunities, access to resources, and academic rights. Because providing rights can be done by the Constitution, implement and to give access to the learners is something that the higher education institutes and the school education will have to ensure. So while the policy talks about ensuring equitable access to quality education, it also tells us, and in fact, the implementation committee has identified these two objectives that each higher education institute and in fact school institute also should identify and measure what are those barriers in higher education and then include steps to facilitate participation through enhanced opportunities. Now, when we say light but tight regulation. And when we say light but tight regulation, but also including transparency and public disclosures, no sooner we all as higher education institutes will be asked to disclose how we have identified what are the steps that we have taken to identify and measure the facets of exclusion and access barrier in higher education. Second, what are the steps that we have taken to facilitate participation and what is the impact which has been created? So the students who were not able to access education, were they able to access education that your higher education institute is providing? That is something we will be required to disclose publicly in the days to come, in the months to come. So that's the second equity and inclusion point. I would just like to tell you, highlight a fact, data which National Education Policy is highlighting, that the gross enrollment ratio for grade 6, this is by the way on page number 11 of the National Education Policy, that the gross enrollment ratio of grade 6 to 8 was 19.9%, while for grades 9 to 10th, 11 to 12th was only 79.3 and 56.5% respectively, indicating that a significant proportion of enrolled students drop out after grade 5. And if you look at 9th to 10th and 11th to 12th, this is again very drastic and eye-opening. Same way, if you go to higher education, this particular gross enrollment ratio falls drastically further. And that is what is indicating that the access to education, equity and inclusion is of paramount importance in higher education system as well as in school education. Moving on to the third focus area, which is research, innovation and entrepreneurship. The policy says that building a robust ecosystem of research and innovation that will propel India into a leading knowledge economy and also drive the economic, intellectual, societal, environmental, and technological health and progress of the nation. I really love the word here, technological health and progress of the nation. So the word health is very inclusive. And it's talking about 5 parameters here: economic, intellectual, societal, environmental, and technological health. And if you, I think you would all agree with me that a good, healthy nation can only progress. So, first, the National Education Policy talks about building a robust ecosystem of research and innovation based on the 5 parameters, which are these, and finally devices out the 7 objectives. And it says establish National Research Foundation. This is something that the policymakers are already working on. And the framework for National Research Foundation is already ready, and no sooner it will be all in our hands. Establish collaborative institutional research network. For this, there have been implementation steps which have been suggested by the committee, both at the policy level, at the national level, at the state levels, and at the region levels. So very soon there will be implementation steps which will be out in the public domain. What are the steps which are going to be taken to establish this collaborative institutional research network? Third is address national issues of importance. Now, this is very important. What the policymakers are trying to do is to collectively work in a focused manner, in a very objective driven manner, to address national issues of importance. And mind it, this particular third objective is coming in the research, innovation, and entrepreneurship focus area. This means that all the research and the innovation efforts by the higher education institutes should be driven to address the national issues of importance. So the research may go on in other areas also, like fundamental and applied and in various areas of technological importance, but it also wants, the national education policy also wants us to include and address the national issues of importance in whatever research and innovation that the higher education institutes are doing. Promote vibrant innovation and research culture among students. Grow entrepreneurial ecosystem in higher education institutes, campuses. Evolve comprehensive ranking framework, which is already there. And IRF is continuously evolving and taking into its net many higher education institutes now. Earlier on, there were only a few which participated 4 years back, and now almost 70% of the higher education institutes participate in the ranking framework. Actively engage students through internship opportunities. All these have been discussed in detail and are part of the implementation process based on these objectives and based on the focus area of research and innovation. This, by the way, is also getting a lot of focus and importance, the research innovation, apart from motivating, energizing our faculty members. This particular focus area is also of second most important issue that was discussed in the implementation committee meetings. Because no matter what all efforts you make, unless you can make the noise and buzz in terms of research and innovation at the international scene, and also address the national issues of importance, all the research and innovation that we do goes for a toss. So that's another very important focus area that the national education policy and the policymakers want us higher education institutes to focus upon. Global outreach. Now, in the global outreach, earlier on, the focus of all education institutes was to collaborate with the best of the higher education institutes across the world and somehow make our students get access to international education, which was being given, imparted at, at the foreign institutes outside India. But the global outreach focus in national education policy is to make the education in India at par with global standards and enabling faculty and students collaboration and exchanges suitably facilitated by regulatory and legislative framework. Now here they are talking of exchanges, which means to promote the brand Indian educational strengths. You all would agree with me that there are educational strengths in Indian education system which are second to none in the world. And the problem is that we do not realize those strengths. In fact, we do not know about those strengths. Why? Because we do not practice those strengths. So the national education policy says that you realize, pen down, find out, display, propagate your educational strengths as an Indian higher education institute. And make your education, the education that you impart at the higher education institute in India, to be at par with the global standards. Make credit transfer possible also for seamless two-way mobility of students. So not only we should be able to send our students outside, but also make possible inward transition of those students to our education system. And they do not want us to copy what we do, what they do outside India, but to realize our own strengths, practice those Indian education systems which are second to none and only known to us. Make it propagate it, make noise about it, and attract students from foreign universities to gain credits from our Indian higher education institutes. That's the global outreach. Motivated, energized, and capable faculty members. The national education policy talks about making the faculty the strongest pillar of education system. You all would agree with me that more often than not, people or the students, or I would say young professionals, take up teaching as a profession when there is nothing else left to them. Meaning that the pride that a young professional would get by going into an industry vis-a-vis by taking teaching as a profession is somewhere not equivalent. The national education policy rightly talks about instilling pride in the profession of education and to bring in other ingredients such as morality, ethics, empowerment, accountability, and zero tolerance to substandard education and infrastructure. The national education policy talks about at length, and the implementation guidelines also are talking about in great length about how we can motivate, energize, and make our faculty more capable of imbibing ingredients such as morality, ethics, empowerment, and zero tolerance to substandard education. For that, the first objective is that we will have to make the recruitment and service conditions and career progression favorable, but with a defined norm of accountability. It's give and take. If there is accountability, then there has to be service conditions and career progression favorable. But if the service conditions and career progression is to be made favorable, there has to be accountability. It goes hand in hand. Similarly, leadership, managerial, teaching and learning, all these programs, training, faculty development programs should be accessible and mandatory for all the faculty members. Because teaching is not only teaching. We know, you all know, and the educationalists would agree that there are at least 32 different form of skills that a teacher has to possess to be a successful or a motivational or a role model to be in the class. Those 32 skills are not, they are beyond only the teaching skills and the content or the knowledge that the teacher possesses. And finally, to empower faculty to design and use their own pedagogical and curricular approaches. So it's a very ambitious dream, so that every faculty member who is trained morally, ethically, empowered with a lot of accountability should be able to design his or her own pedagogical model, how and why and what he or she is going to teach in the class, and the way that he wants to teach. So all these are objectives to make the motivated, energized, and capable faculty members. Integrating higher education system. So remember, I talked about the 3 points, the objectives with which this national education policy is formed. And these 3 objectives are coming directly from those 3 points that I highlighted earlier. Propose and implement a holistic teacher education model. Now that is important. Unless we train our teachers to be holistic, they will not be able to impart holistic education to the learner. So the integrated higher education system talks first about proposing and implementing a holistic teacher education model. Then to propose vocational education, skill, employability, internship, apprenticeship for increasing overall education acceptance. And to propose professional education, agriculture, legal, healthcare education, a part of higher education in multidisciplinary universities. Somehow, agriculture, legal, and healthcare education, and again, not only this doesn't apply to only these 3 verticals, but other verticals also. Everything else and everything is just bounded by the disciplines of the education that we impart. So holistic education in teacher education model, then vocational education, skill, internship, apprenticeship, they should be all intricately woven across the whole education, across the whole higher education model. So remember, a vocational education, think of an education system, a transparent education system and a seamless education system, wherein vocational education, skill education, employability, internship, and apprenticeship are tradable for each other. That's a big word that I have used here, are tradable for each other. So everything should be delivered par perfection. Remember, zero tolerance to substandard education, and making agriculture, legal, and healthcare education as a part of the thread which weaves across the higher education in multidisciplinary universities. So that's the part of the integrated higher education model that the national education policy talks about. Finally, the governance. To propose a regulatory system of higher education to ensure the distinct functions of regulation. Each word is important here. Regulation, accreditation, funding, and academic standards setting will be performed by distinct, independent, and empowered bodies. In fact, higher education policy is talking about institutional development plan, which in fact, incidentally is also listed here at objective number 4. So every institution will be required to propose an institutional development plan, a short-term plan, a long-term plan, and in a goal-driven manner, in an objective-driven manner, and to curb commercialization of education. This is again a debatable point because since everything is very competitive in higher education world and school education world, Commercialization should be curbed, but competitiveness of higher education should be promoted. Healthy competition in, in a healthy manner, which should be assessed by healthy ranking framework, by a transparent ranking framework, by public disclosures, and by ensuring transparency of the education system which each education institute offers. Graded autonomy and accreditation. UGC and the Higher Education Commission of India, which is also proposed to be framed, they are all talking about in a phased manner about accreditation of all higher education institutes existing within the country, and also graded autonomy. So autonomy will be followed by will be followed after the accreditation. So as and when the higher education institutes are getting accredited, they will also be awarded autonomy. And because autonomy brings in a lot of flexibility and accountability. And that's what is the long drawn goal of the Higher Education Commission of India, which is going to be soon composed. This is about the governance and regulation. And finally, to accord high priority of promotion of India's cultural wealth, thereby preserving her identity and boost its economy. On the global scene also, India can shine only if we work on our strengths. We promote our strengths, we talk about our strengths, and we work on our weaknesses. We encash the opportunities which are given by the national education policy, and these are the three things which national education policy talks about if we want to promote Indian education system across the world. What are the three things? Promotion of Indian knowledge systems. We all know from Takshila Nalanda times that we have got a wealth of Indian knowledge with us, which has not been promoted, unfortunately, across the world. Promotion of Indian art and culture and arts, which is again the oldest culture found on this earth, Indian culture and art forms also, and promotion of language and literature. Because we do not believe in our local native languages, lot of literature and lot of knowledge is being buried in those scriptures, which now nobody is able to translate. National education policy talks at length about promoting Sanskrit, promoting yoga, promoting other native language and literature, which is a wealth of it that we have in Indian knowledge systems. So there are a lot of steps which are being taken at the national level, at the ministry level also. Like for example, establishing universities, exclusive universities who are going to promote Indian knowledge systems. But every other higher education institute also needs to collaborate with those universities and also somehow rediscover, refine our roots and our culture, language and literature and the knowledge systems, which have been unfortunately buried in those very rich literature and culture and in our ancient knowledge, in our heritage, in fact, our what we call as Purvaj. That all has been buried. We need to rediscover it. Technology use, so they are talking about the National Education Technology Forum to propose effective utilization of online and digital education. So while the national education policy talks about going back to our roots, they're also talking about strengthening the roots to strengthen the whole tree of education. So more strengthened our roots are, more effective utilization of online and digital education to make it propagate across the world. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, smart boards, handheld computing devices, adaptive computer testing for students' development, all these have been talked at length, and another very important focus area that the national education policy talks about. So in a nutshell, we have discussed in the previous 40 minutes about these 9 focus areas that the national education policy talks about. In some way, this particular presentation also talked a little more, one more step about defining objectives on each of these 9 focus areas, but it leaves to the higher education institutes to define their own framework, to define their own processes, to define their own parameters, and to define their own measurement techniques and impact areas, how these 9 focus areas they are going to perform in their domain, in the constraints and opportunities that each higher education institute has, and finally measure the own impact and make a transparent system by public disclosures on how they have fared on, or they are going to fare on these 9 focus areas. That's all from my side, Jyoti ji. Over to you.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us about our new education policy. Also, as we as teachers get benefited from your words on designing our own pedagogical and curricular approaches. As you provided insights into the focus areas of NEP will definitely help us change our thoughts from traditional education framework to this new one. And thank you guiding us through the steps for developing a robust ecosystem of research and innovation for progress of nation. Now, I request participants, if you have any queries, you can simply write it into chat box or just raise your hand. We will unmute you for the discussion. Also, please note for the participants, the attendance link is available in chat box. I request all of you to fill the same. Okay, here is a query from Dr. Shilpa Tripathi, ma'am.
Madam, good morning once again.
Yes, yes. Good morning. Good morning.
I just wanted to know, ma'am, do you think that we are really ready for this revolutionary change as suggested in this NEP document for the higher education and for the school education also?
Thank you for this question, Dr. Tripathi. See, human nature is that we are always wanting to oppose the change, especially if we are in our comfort zone. So if we find that we are in our comfort zone, we will never be able to accept any change. But the matter of the fact is, we are sitting on a volcano. The kind of brain drain, the kind of the startling figures that the National Education Policy talks about, the gross enrollment ratio standing at very, very low figures, the access to education is not there. Our faring as a nation on the sustainable development goals, if all these are indicating anything, we are sitting on a volcano and we have no other choice but to change, to revolutionize, and to make every effort possible to make the education accessible, equitable, driven by research and innovation, and finally, and most importantly, change the whole teacher education system so that they can propagate a holistic education system to make future, I would say, जिसको हम कहते हैं ना नागरिक of उन्नत भारत. जब तक वो नहीं होगा, जब तक हम चेंज नहीं होंगे, तब तक कुछ नहीं हो पाएगा. And as I said, we are sitting on a volcano. It can erupt any day. We should not wait for that disaster to happen. We have no choice but to change, but to accept and get ready for the change.
Right. At the same time, madam, this education policy also speaks about the, skill education, skill development, and all those areas. So, don't you think that in this NEP, the role of industry and the industrial personnel should also be incorporated, or they should be should also be a stakeholder for this implementation and development part of this NEP?
You're right. you can see this particular, after all, they are the beneficiaries of the higher education system, the industry. But to make them as a stakeholder is something that very precariously this higher education, this national education policy has left to the framework that the higher education systems, higher education institutes are going to define for themselves. So very at length, this national education policy talks about strengthening industry academia relationships. And that is one way of saying that they are the stakeholders of the higher education institute. Deliberately, this might not have been put in the document that, that the national education policy is wanting industry to do something, because already they have a lot to do in their hands. There is so much that they have to do for progressing this nation. So probably that is why one more responsibility has not been put on them, industry as a sector, but indirectly talks and gives that responsibility to the higher education institutes and also to school education institutes. Also, this national education policy talks about that they have to be working hand in hand with the industry to let this happen. This is very important. And it does talk about it, but not making them as a direct implementer of this national education policy. They're not.
Thank you, ma'am, for the answer. Ma'am, there is a question from Borchala Darji. Please unmute yourself. Karo, ma'am.
Okay.
Sir.
Yeah. Good morning, good morning or good afternoon, Vanak.
Morning, sir.
Yes. Okay. I'm Borchala and graduated in bachelor degree in electrical and computer engineering, stream control. Yeah, it is a nice session and a good presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, madam. Then I have a question. How do you see the current education system, especially in regarding to developing countries? Also in India, there is more. India have in the world more population over. Also, the in India have more educated person in the world. Those who worked in the, but they are live as brain due to brain drain. So my question is, how do you see the current education system also in higher education institution? You know, the cost is very high. You know, they are seeing that, as I expect, education changer to the many, especially as commercial. They are entering to commercial. How do you see compare to this? Thank you.
Ma'am, I think, so please wait. I think there are some issues with Archana ma'am's connection.
सर एक वो क्वेश्चन पूछा है, आप आंसर करेंगे? वो मैडम का कुछ इश्यू आ गया. Doreji ji, can you repeat your question? The Honorable Vice Chancellor of our university would like to answer your question.
The sir,
Borchala Doraji.
Yes, sir. Madam.
Can you repeat your question? The Honorable Vice Chancellor of Medicaps University is here to answer your query.
Okay. Yeah. I'm comparing that the higher education institution also in the regarding to the current era or since this century. Yeah, the education is totally converted, especially from these developing countries to the many, or I can say that it is like commercial, it inter-commercial like other community. Do you think what is the how to reach this our education and how to enter this education system? Why it enter to this? I'm saying that look, it is difficult to get even to follow education, especially for the developing countries. It's much competition is there. Yes, am I audible?
Yeah. See, in this national education policy, there are so many frameworks and
Hello?
guidelines which are given,
उनका अर्चना मैम का कॉल आ रहा था.
which relates to your this question that the developing countries are taking care of and how they will be doing. So yes, of course, the developing countries and of course our India, the complete framework will come, and it will take say few years to shift from the existing traditional kind of education system to new education system or new policy which has been formulated. And I believe that within a span of say 2 years, it will be getting. Archana madam is again joined. So any next question, please?
Ma'am, there is a question in chat box. What role does blended learning and e-learning play for the learning of my students? What role does this blended learning and e-learning play for learning of students? Mm. Ma'am, am I audible? Archana ma'am?
Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am. What role does this blended learning and e-learning will play for learning of students? For better learning of students?
See, it talks about leveraging technology, making the education inclusive. So this also means that the whole gamut of education is going to change. It has already changed. In fact, the harder way with this pandemic, it has changed in a harder way for us, but now it has become acceptable. So e-learning, blended learning has a lot of, in fact, a major role to play to for making the education inclusive. So we just talked about making the education inclusive and accessible. So e-learning and blended learning is one model that can make the education accessible for even those which have got physical barriers to come to institutes. So by providing e-learning, you can make the education reach to them rather than they reach physically to the educational institutes.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. There is one more query from Mr. Prabhat Nigam. Sir, you can unmute yourself. Mr. Prabhat Nigam?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Good morning to everyone. And first of all, my congratulations to Medicap University for providing such a platform. And Dr. Archana, as always, your presentation was excellent. I was going through each and every slide and reading it myself while I was listening to you. I would like to ask you about the focus area number 5, which talks about the standard of teaching faculty. What is being done in this regard? Because this NEP policy came in 2020. It's almost a year since it has been rolled. And is there anything being done by the government? Any policies being framed? Or is it still left to the universities or the higher educational institutions to draw up some lines?
So it's thank you for the question, Captain Nigam. By the way, Captain Nigam is from Chitkara University and he is the Dean of Maritime Education, a trust figure in the maritime world. And thank you for that question. And it is pertinent that all of us are worried. And in fact, the policymakers and the higher education institutes, all of us are worried about the quality of teachers. Because as I said, they are the movers and shakers. They are the torch bearers. Now, to your question, what the government is doing, what is left to the higher education institutes? So the government is already taking a lot of steps in terms of enabling and providing faculty development programs, not only in the content specific or the discipline specific modules, discipline specific areas, but also in other areas of governance, management, classroom management, teaching learning techniques, using technology for teaching learning. All these are being, the faculty development programs are being planned by the government, both at the UGC and AICT and the institutes of national importance level. And they are being propagated through various means, various higher education institutes, and higher education institutes are encouraged to are also required to encourage their faculty members to participate in these faculty development programs. Just to give you an example, AICT has launched this Atal Academy, as they call it, ATL. Now, Atal Academy's work is to provide faculty development programs, plan faculty development programs, and conduct it across the country. Incidentally, recently AICT has launched and invited proposals from all higher education institutes to propose faculty development programs in specific areas. And I am also now a part of the committee which is shortlisting those applications. And just to tell you that over 6,000 applications have been received all across the country, from all across the country, all higher education institutes. The process of shortlisting is going on. And finally, there will be around 1,500 faculty development programs which will be delivered online and offline through Atal Academy. And the institutes who have proposed these, whose proposals will be shortlisted, will also be given some fund from the Atal Academy side to conduct these programs. And faculty members from all across the country are encouraged to participate in those faculty development programs. That's one example of how the government is planning to make the faculty members more capable, trained in specific areas. What higher education institutes are supposed to do? They are supposed to motivate and energize their faculty members to participate in these programs. One, also provide them conducive conditions so that they instill pride in this profession. Unless they find pride in this profession, and they will not be encouraged and they will not be motivated to keep them abreast of the new technologies and also imparting holistic education to their students. So that's the two-pronged approach that the National Education Policy talks about. And these are the specific steps which the government and higher education institutes are taking and are supposed to take. Do I answer your question?
Thank you, ma'am. Well, the key word is to bring in the pride in the profession. That is what we do in the maritime industry, in the merchant navy. When we select people as cadets, we ensure that we try to bring pride in them to join this profession. Just on the note of finishing what I was asking, Maritime Trainers Guild has been into faculty development program for maritime trainers. And I'll be very glad, and it'll be very nice of you to show us further road, since you are part of this team. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am. Once more, I am saying that please, all the participants, please fill the attendance link in chat box. And I think now let me call upon Dr. Shilpa Tripathi, Dean Student Welfare, Medicaps University, for vote of thanks. Ma'am, over to you.
Hello. Yes.
Thank you, Jyoti Madam. Respected Dr. Archana Mantri, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Chitkara University, respected Professor Sunil K. Somani, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of our Medicaps University, Deans, HODs, and all the dignitaries present virtually. A very warm good evening. Good morning. This is our second webinar in the series of this webinars on NEP 2020. This is to confirm the fact that continuous learning nurtured by Medicaps University. Dr. Mantri commented on her opening remark on NEP 2020 that it is itself a research document. So understanding the key issues of this document, its implementation is going to be a big deal for all of us. As we know, in this ongoing pandemic, which is affecting all of us one or the other way, we have developed our own ways of learning. If I talk about NEP, in such a time of pandemic time, our leaders were busy in preparing the document, preparing the draft, finalization and implementation of the implementing plan for this NEP 2020. Taking this period as an opportunity, we exposed ourselves to a new virtual world, and now we are just window apart. We are still learning the things about NEP, and a lot of discussion have been done on this document, the advantages, the challenges, the issues. The planning for proper implementation is still continued. I believe the overall potential overhaul that the NEP 2020 will require a genuine move to widen the people's mental horizon. It is essential for the younger generation to have a balanced education and hands-on vocational training to prepare them for the professional world. I believe that there are many challenges like clarity about the training and skill development of the teachers, the availability of the content in the Indian local languages, the proper integration, the timeline, the required infrastructure, technology outreach, etc., etc. But we know that a goal without a deadline is just a dream. So towards the fulfillment of our dream, we need to move ahead at a faster rate. The implementation of this policy will definitely help in transforming India's education, and I believe soon we will become the first among the developed countries. With this, first of all, I would like to heartily thank to Dr. Archana Mantri, the Honorable Vice Chancellor Chitkara University, for accepting our request and for sparing her valuable time for this thought-provoking words on NEP 2020 in reference to higher education. Madam, you explained the entire thing in a very small, very simple words indeed. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your politeness and humbleness. I extend my gratitude to our august body of technical education, AICTE, for joint organization of this webinar. At this juncture, my sincere thanks are also due to the management of Medicaps University, the Honorable Chancellor and Pro-Chancellor Sir for their extended support for the successful organization of this webinar. Me and my team is really grateful to Honorable VC Sir for his motivation, encouragement and guidance. the credit of the success of this webinar goes to you too, sir. Here I would like to quote that many of the area which are mentioned in this document are very close to the heart of our VC sir. And believe you me, we are already started working in those areas since the inception of our university. And that is why we are ranked as topmost university of among the private university in the in entire MP. Thank you so much, sir. Heartily thanks to my team who made this webinar to happen, the co-convener, Ms. Jyoti. In spite of this long weekend we had, she ensured each and every minute detail for this webinar. Suryakant sir, Amrita madam, Megha, Gajendra ji, for their all-round support, a big thank you. I thank all those who supported this webinar directly and indirectly. Last but not the least, I express my sincere thanks to all the participants without whom this webinar could not happen. The success of this webinar is itself explanatory with the participation level across India. Madam, we have participation from Bangalore, Warangal, Dehradun, the entire MP, the Ahmedabad, Kota, Bhuj, and so many cities are there across India. We have the participants who are all are enlightened by your words. I am sure you all have enjoyed this webinar. Hope to see you soon. We'll be back with the third webinar of this series. Thank you. Thank you once again. Over to you, Jyoti.
Thank you all for being here and taking the time to patiently listen. Thank you, ma'am. I also want to extend my gratitude to Dr. Shilpa Tripathi for support. Before we sign off, I would like to tell you all that we are having more webinars in the list of National Education Policy. Join us next time too. Thank you, Archana ma'am, once again. I wish you all a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Suryakant sir, we can end here.